Welcome, folks. Most people have no real idea what happens during embalming.
Yeah.
We either avoid the topic entirely or assume it is a requirement. And many of us have no idea that there are alternatives besides cremation. If you're grieving, you're often asked to make these decisions about embalming, or do you want the concrete ball and the
Yeah.
box and everything else, or the disposition choices, and you never get the chance to understand what you're choosing. Even death positive professionals sometimes realize they were never actually taught the full embalming process step by step. There's no shame in that. Information does not course freely for all of us.
Right.
The funeral industry has historically kept that curtain drawn, and when you're grieving, you do not exactly feel like raising your hand and saying, "Excuse me,
Excuse me, how do you do that?
can you tell me more about this process?"
Yeah, you're right, and I mean, I've been through that myself, and, it's not that we're not informed, it's that the embalming really has been treated as the default for
Mhm.
hundreds of years, and actually only a couple hundred years, but, once you understand what it is and what it's not, it can become less mysterious and less emotionally charged too. So and once you understand there's some alternatives, you can gain something powerful. You can gain agency over what you choose.
Mhm.
Now, the conversation we're going to have isn't about judging embalming, and it's not about
Yeah,
replacing
you could do it.
confusion. You know, it is about, I mean, replacing
Mm.
confusion with clarity, so that you can make decisions with some kind of values that align with your values. So
Yeah, that's right. That's right. If you know something, then you can decide. Like, if
yeah,
you don't know
exactly.
anything, you're just like, "I don't know. Okay." But in any case, in this episode, we sit down with Ray Chel, the creator of the self-published zine, The Little Undertaker's Embalming Guide.
So good.
This was such a cool book that I found at a zine fest. So I am just delighted to offer this little story. It's based on this fictional mortician, Alfred Alexander III. Ray breaks down the embalming process in an accessible, art forward, and unexpectedly human way. This conversation is not a step by step tutorial about embalming. Instead, we are going to learn the following: why embalming is so misunderstood, how the funeral industry really shapes how we make our decisions when it comes to our decedents. What is aquamation?
Mhm.
The alkaline hydrolysis. What is it really? And what natural organic reduction, also known as human composting, is reshaping the end of life choices. And ultimately, it's the role of art and storytelling in death education.
Which is so important and we love. So even, if you're a death positive worker, or if you're an artist, anyone really navigating grief, any of us, this episode can offer context, clarity, and it can create perspective around funeral practices that are sometimes kept behind closed doors. So if you've ever wondered whether embalming is required, or what alternatives exist, or how to approach your own planning with more agency, this conversation is for you. So stay with us, because clarity here could well change your experience on one of the most vulnerable moments of your life. And
That's right.
all of us have experienced that. So enjoy.
Enjoy. Hello, hello, and thank you for coming back to listen to our podcast today. Today is really lovely because I'm super excited to introduce Ray Chel. Most folks call him Chel. He is a licensed tattoo artist. He primarily makes research based, informative zines that focus on topics such as gender affirmation and death. One of these self published projects is his zine, The Little Undertaker's Embalming Guide. This is how I got to know Chel, by the way, at a zine festival. So, in the zine, we are guided by a fictional mortician named Alfred Alexander III through the basic steps in the embalming process. Alfred also informs the reader about alternative options to embalming, including aquamation and natural organic reduction, otherwise known as human composting. Chel, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, yeah, it's so
Yes, I'm
great.
super excited to be here. I really appreciate you inviting me onto the podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to sending out information about the zine and getting caught up on the zine. And thanks for doing that. That's so fun. I'm the
Absolutely.
Reverend Wakil David Matthews. Chel tells us that he came to a stark and disheartening realization. I hear this one that Western society's current standing with death is overwhelming, avoidant grief, which is so true and the reason we're here, really, and it's dreadfully misunderstood. Which, of course, is the same realization that we had here, and that's led to what we're doing here, right? Shell is always looking to gather information to develop opinions and theories about where change can be made, as well as to engage in death positive conversations like this one.
Mhm.
So we're all definitely in the right place right now, right? So welcome very much.
Yes.
Great to have you. Uh,
Yes, absolutely.
we like
I
to go ahead.
wait, I wanna just jump in here and do something
Mhm.
different
Yeah.
because when I met Chell, we were talking about this particular zine. I was, tabling for my daughter, and we started talking about the embalmers piece, but I think began with, your tattoos, and then you showed me your tattoo of a coffin,
Yeah,
and that's when I
that's
was
you know,
like,
tattoo.
Wait a minute, this is a death, like, positive person. Let's actually connect deeper." So, you know,
Yeah,
this is where life is gets me excited when I get to intersect with people who are just delightful in my realm. So, thank you.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely, and, what a better way to, like, very openly express death positivity than tattoos. I also have, the word, "mortal" across my knuckles, so I'm very aware of, my mortality and, I've decided to embrace that in an art form I have dedicated, my livelihood to, so
That's so
Oh,
cool. That's so great.
so
yeah.
cool.
And what a great way to meet people too. I don't have tattoos. I guess I'll have to get a button or something.
Or we could get matching tattoos, Wakil. We could go to Oklahoma and
Yes.
get some
Yeah, make
matching
a
tattoos.
trip. I would love to
On our
show y'all my
forehead.
studio.
Well, definitely, we should put that on our wish
Our
list.
bucket list.
Yeah, Oklahoma City has lots to offer, trust me.
Oh, good. All right. Cool. Good to know. Yeah. Well, do you remember in your life when you first understood what death was?
Yes, actually, the first I guess, like, the most impactful early memory I have of death involves my childhood cat, Bryce.
Hmm.
I can remember waking up in the morning and, running into the living room and seeing her laying on her side, and I instantly knew something was off even as a very young child. She was meowing in a way that seemed like she was in pain, and, so I went upstairs, I grabbed my parents, and they came down, and they both basically confirmed what, my little child brain didn't, fully understand, but I knew something was off, and they're like, "We think that Bryce is dying."
Hmm.
And I can remember running to my room, and one of my parents comforted me while another one stayed in the room with the cat. And, she, of course, eventually passed. But what made that so impactful was not only that, like, that little thing in my brain going, something's different here,
Yeah.
that I don't remember being pre-established. And then after she passed, my parents went outside. We have like a pet cemetery that
Mhm.
we still to this day be adding to. Um,
That's
and I
awesome.
can remember as my parents were digging her grave, I just sat on the deck and I just held her. And I can remember that
Mm.
experience of deep sadness and, her body was getting colder, she was limp, all the things that, like,
Mm,
a live cat, isn't, and so I got to have that experience of, you know, spending time with the cat's body before laying her to rest, and I remember that was just so impactful, and it felt like I really got to say goodbye to this animal.
Mhm.
mhm,
So that's
mhm.
really my first impactful memory with death. I feel like pet loss is a pretty common one for young children,
Yeah,
to experience death for the first time.
and I love
Yeah,
that your parents had such a hands-on, if you will, that it wasn't like, "We're gonna hide this from you," or, "We're gonna
right.
Mhm.
ignore it," which is stories we've heard as well, People
Yeah,
just
Yeah.
wanna
there's a lot of kids who don't get to actually engage with their fur babies' bodies, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
or they're goldfish or whatever, yeah.
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 Exactly, like, you do hear stories where, it's kind of it's almost like a joke at this point where it's like, "Oh, Fido went to the farm,"
Right.
and it's like, it's like that avoidance of wanting to have the conversation with, young children because there's this, like, thought process that they're not ready or something like that, and I'm like, "Well, I mean, I personally disagree." I think that my parents, being so, open and upfront with death, um, as a concept and as something that we're going to experience in life actually really set me up to even kind of be where I'm at now as an adult.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, so I definitely think that that was helpful for me.
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, that's a good message we want to say over and over again here on this.
We
Yeah,
So,
do.
yeah, yeah, make sure people know
absolutely.
children need to be aware this is as much a part of life as births and
That's
Yeah,
right.
birthdays and
Death
spring and
days.
fall and
death
Yep.
days, and
yeah,
Um,
children are so capable
yeah,
of processing it,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
I think that they are capable of much more than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
well, okay, I'm gonna just diverge for just a moment, but,
Mhm,
it's interesting, I homeschooled my kids, and
mhm,
so, there was a lot of me teaching them about having agency, and just because you're younger and less experienced doesn't make you less wise or capable of creating a solid decision based on your life experiences.
So true.
mhm.
And so, what I just heard you say is, like, kids have the capacity. Do you
Mhm.
realize, like, all humans have capacity, and
Yeah.
some adults don't have the capacity, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so it's like an ageist belief that if you're, like, a single digit age, you do not have the potential, like, capacity for awareness of life and death, but truly, we
Yeah.
all come into this world understanding it, we're just cloistered away from it from some kind of bizarre notion that, children and I think I've read in books, like, just fiction about how, oh, the children had to be kept away because grandmother said it would just, like, taint their lives, and you're like,
Mm.
Mm.
"What the actual?"
Yeah,
Right.
actually.
Anyhow, so I digress,
Yeah.
but
No, no, it's all good.
so I appreciate that was your formative moment in understanding death. How has death impacted the story of your life and brought you to where you are today?
Well, I feel like it all kind of like, we go back to childhood a little bit, and uh I don't think my mom was really aware of how, death positive she was, in the way that she raised us. Um,
Mm,
my mom is a person who has experienced quite a bit of loss in her life. She's
Mm,
lost her great grandparents, parents, and uh, she's had to learn to process and grapple with grief from a very young age. And so growing up, there was a lot of grave sites to go see. So she would take us at least twice a year. We would make our pilgrimage out to the cemeteries.
mm,
And as kids, it was actually something, and I still look forward to our cemetery days, even now.
mhm,
But as kids, we look forward to it because it was, we went out there, we had the flowers, we put the flowers out, the flowers are pretty,
mhm,
and it was just an opportunity to ask questions. I remember, after we would lay the flowers on our family members' graves, we would spend quite a bit of time just wandering around the cemetery, looking at the flowers, commenting on how the flowers are pretty, commenting on, people's last names and the dates on the
mhm,
stones, which would then give us the opportunity to ask questions.
mhm.
My mom would answer them to the best of her ability. And there's just something, we did, throughout my entire life, and I think that that made it to where cemeteries were very much like places, to actually go visit.
mhm.
People who will lay their loved ones to rest, and that's it. They don't really go back, and
Yeah.
that was just like a regular thing we would do and still do.
Mm, that's
Mm,
great. That's so good. I love that, and I love that, it's a kind of regular part of the world you grew up in, and so many
mhm.
people, like you said, I think this is also true because of our the way we diversify, we're born in one place and we end up, my kids are scattered all over the country, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Although they're coming closer, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm in the same part of the world, but my parents moved out here from the East Coast, and so, it's very common that people move far away from their loved ones. It's not like it was in the old days where we were
No.
all in one
Or
village
the
and
same
we buried
community.
our people there in the village and we
Mhm.
went and spent time with them and it was part of the village.
Mhm.
And so we've lost that. I think that's an important and uh, impactful loss that we've had in our culture, that we don't have that connection to our people
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
to where the people are, and to go back and spend time with them. Yeah.
Mhm. Well,
So
Yeah.
it just also occurred to me, like, not only are we kind of transporting ourselves all over the planet as
yeah.
families, as clans, and, the very affordable and highly used, cremation process
Mhm.
also diminishes the ability for us to, like, go somewhere to sit, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
unless it's like, auntie's closet where Grandma Joan and the dog and whatever are, like,
In their boxes.
housed in their boxes, right?
Yeah.
So there is something about, like, the lack of intentionality around how to go and spend time with our ancestors. Like
Yeah.
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 Yeah, having an
Exactly.
actual place to visit and everything, and, I feel like, one of our local cemeteries right down the street from us, very recently, I think at least refurbished their columbarium and everything, so I wonder if because cremation is definitely on, the incline and everything because of its affordability, if maybe some cemeteries are, of course, seeing an opportunity, but also being like,
right.
"Oh, some people might still want a place to visit,
Yes.
that's more
Mhm.
affordable than,
Mhm.
the embalming, the casket, the vault, the plot, the stone."
Right.
And, it's the cremation and then, a similar vault to that of a mausoleum, but significantly smaller, and I very recently went over to that cemetery, I was taking a look at that and everything, and it seemed relatively new because none of the dates on there were older than, like, I think 2018.
Mm.
So,
Wow.
Huh.
I know that the concept of a columbarium isn't new, but, at least in my little cemetery over here, it's a
Mhm.
new establishment.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm one of those that loves to wander around cemeteries, so,
Yes.
but, I was just thinking, I have no idea if I even wanted to where my grandparents are buried or where their remains were left. I know where my parents were, but that was
Yeah.
ashes that we put out in one spot, and I do visit that now once in a while, but, that's interesting to think. I wonder how many people that's true for, that they wouldn't even know where to go if they wanted to visit their family,
Yeah.
their loved
Yeah.
ones. So
Yeah, findagrave.com.
right, yeah,
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 see if you
yeah,
can find them on there.
It's gonna be
yeah,
a
yeah,
GIS,
little
like,
GIS coordinates. Yeah, I love
somewhere.
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Actually,
that's how,
we had this wonderful person come on and talk about, green burial, where they just basically put you in this forest with a tree, and you
yeah,
don't have a headstone, and she said they had to create a GIS mapping system so that people would be able
yeah,
to find their people, find their tree.
yeah,
So that's
I
great.
love that.
That's great.
that is
Yeah.
I
really
I
cool.
also I also think, as you were speaking, Chell, I was thinking about, first of all, everyone's my ancestor, right? Like,
Mhm.
we're all kin at
Yeah.
some level. And it was just occurred to me, I was like, I used to spend a lot more time in cemeteries because I do find them to be the great picnic area, great reading
Yeah,
area. I did a lot of portraits in cemeteries. And I was thinking, maybe I should start going to just like wander around and talk to whomever is hanging out there, right? Like our ancestors. But it occurred to me, like, my favorite tia and my grandparents are in Isleta, Texas. And every once in a while, when I'm able to go down, I wander around the cemetery and I literally I couldn't tell you where they're at, but I find them. I'm
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"Hmm."
That you just have this, like, internal navigation system that's
I
like you're going to find your family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, I
Yeah,
mean, so maybe, like, just a random cemetery, you could find somebody that You may or may not know this. I mean, with 23andMe, everybody's finding themselves connected, so you
Yeah,
never
right,
know.
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
to people we never thought possible, right?
That's right.
yeah.
So, anyhow, I
Yeah.
digress again.
Yeah, no, no, that's what this should be. I don't think digress is the right word. We're having a wonderful conversation. I'm really appreciating it. We
Yes.
never, we have like, Chell, we have this set of questions that we use kind of as a container, but then I love these kind of conversations where we just enjoy
Flow.
off script.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
I do love the flowiness of our conversation. Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But we do always, I think this next question is more about, we really want to have an opportunity to hear more about what you're doing, your work and that zine. And so this is where you get to tell us your story about, what are you doing now, and what is the work you're up to? So
Absolutely. I am a man of many commitments and everything. So it's I could talk about tattooing, I could talk about the zine, I could talk about the book. But I guess we'll start with the zine since that is how we met and how we connected. So I had mentioned that I have a special interest, if you will, in like death history, death care, what we're doing now, why we do it. So I've definitely, kind of gone down the rabbit hole of like, reading like why is it that we embalm our dead and all that. And I mean, I could go on and on and on about that, but
yeah.
that's a whole tangent in and of itself. But the zine in of itself, I'm working on this fictional book project, and in the meantime of kind of trying to get that, uh, fleshed out a little bit more, and writing a book takes a really long time, and this is my first time doing like a large scale fiction project like this. So research is a little bit easier. At least for me to be able to sit down and read books and scour the internet for sources and figure out how something works, and then just have a fictional narrator, take you through the process.
Mhm.
Alfred Alexander III is our fictional mortician who's taking you through the process of embalming, and it's pretty basic steps and everything. We talk about setting features and arterial embalming, cavity embalming, some of the tools involved in that process. And there's some illustrations and everything that, depict those tools. And then, of course, because I think it's important that people know what alternatives are out there to embalming, those are also listed
Mhm.
in the zine. Embalming, is one of, as of late, it's become second to cremation because of the affordability, which we've discussed a little bit. But throughout our lifetime, most of us are familiar with the, embalmed corpse and casket combo.
Right.
Um, that's a pretty, you know, common shared image in at least the US.
Yeah.
We're one of the few countries that practice it quite to the degree that we do. And you thank the Civil War for that.
Right.
Um, that's I think it's important that people kinda know what goes on behind the curtain, so that was one of my intentions for producing the zine is being
Mhm.
like, you know, some people are gonna pick this up and they're gonna read it and they're going to be like, "Wow, that was really interesting. That's" I feel so informed, but I had at least, like, one person who read it who did like it, but did tell me that, like, there were moments while reading it that made them kinda squeamish, and I was like, yeah, it's a pretty invasive process, at the end of the day, and I mean, there's, other, ways that people can go about things to make it even more invasive. Just
Mhm.
really depends on the mortician that you have, the embalmer and everything. I myself am not one, and so what I did to try and make sure that this zine was, you know, accurate is I cited all my sources, but not being behind the curtain myself, I can only read so much. I can only do so much, in the classroom type research
Yeah.
before you kind of are unaware if you're really telling people the correct information. So thanks to tattooing and all of the people that I get in my chair, I eventually was able to get connected with an embalmer,
Mhm.
Hmm.
and she was more than willing to read over the zine's rough draft and uh, basically fact check it. And thankfully, a lot of my research was correct. She gave me a few. things to add to the zine to
Mm-hmm.
be able to, depict the visuals and everything, the things that happen a little bit better. But beyond that, she basically just gave me a thumbs up, said, "Yep, that's right." And I was like, "Cool," because I was much more interested in being able to credit an actual embalmer
Mm-hmm.
for editing and fact checking than putting a disclaimer in the zine by being like,
Mhm.
"Hey, this is all research based. I myself am not someone who has embalmed a body.
Mm-hmm.
So take this with a grain of salt." Having somebody actually make the difference
Mhm.
right is way better than that.
Way
So,
better, yeah.
yeah.
That's so great. What a
But
brilliant, brilliant idea.
it is, and chill, I do appreciate that you went through that process to make sure that it was not a disclaimer. But when you and I first talked, you really, I think you mentioned this, and you said, "I just want people to understand what they're choosing,"
Mhm.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so the big piece for me that I appreciate about your zine is that unless other unless you're curious about this in your own, like, for your own edification,
Yeah.
people will choose things that they have no idea what it is.
Yeah,
They will
Uh-huh.
just assume, like, this is the normative, death process
right.
that I should say yes to,
Yeah.
and it's the best, way or whatever. And your zine, even though it may feel like it makes people squeamish, it's a very real, like, process that people should know about, and if they decide, like, "I don't want my loved one to go through this," they'll know to say no to that, right?
Right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So,
they'll know there's
Absolutely.
options, yeah.
there's
Yes.
options. I mean, I think that's what I am just delighted when I read that because
Yeah.
and appreciated about your conscientious, death positive, let's create change around this because people don't know and they just and in an acute situation with grief and
Mhm.
finances and
Yeah.
maybe children and grandparents, it's like it's hard to make a choice and you assume that the professionals you go to will actually help you make the best choice. And in fact,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the best choice for everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
often those professionals are motivated by making more money, so,
Uh,
so you don't necessarily. I mean, that was my experience with my mother that, was really painful, to go
yeah.
in the midst of this really horrible grief, to be going into a used car salesman situation,
Yeah.
which is not always the case, but there's certainly are funeral directors with much more compassion and
Mhm.
caring
Yeah.
Mhm.
but in this case that's what it was, and that's just a travesty really, and to
Mhm.
so to
Yeah.
have any kind of information like you're talking about, I love
Yes.
that. And I love
Mhm.
I just recently read another book. It was about cadavers, and it was so funny. It was like half the time I was cracking up and half the time I was grimacing,
Yeah.
you know uh, but yeah, so I
Yep.
really appreciate that you're doing that work. Thank you so much for putting that out. The more we can do this, the better, as far as getting
Mhm.
people this
Absolutely.
awareness. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the challenges that you've encountered with your zine?
With the zine, it honestly has been a pretty smooth process to do that project and everything. It was, just like the reading and the research and everything took a lot of time, but the zine in of itself actually was pretty smooth and everything. I've gotten, I do the zine fest and everything, like where we met to share that zine as well as other projects and everything I do. I also locally do like consignment and everything. So some stores will put it in the store and everything, and
Hmm.
I've just kind of share it wherever I can.
And
And
what's the reception when people read it? Do you get feedback?
I do. A lot of people are. I get people who pick it up both because it is something they're already interested in, and then I get people that pick it up out of like more of a curiosity, which I think is even mentioned in the zine, where it's like, oh, basically, congratulations, you've made the first step to be a more death positive, death aware person by just simply picking this up and reading it, and becoming more aware of not only your own mortality but the mortality of others, and
Mhm.
So I do get people that are kind of on both ends, that pick it up and learn a little bit about that process and everything. So I feel like the audience is fairly broad,
Mhm.
based on my experience so far. Yeah, I've had some people be like, I have never heard of most of this stuff. I don't know anything about
Wow.
this. And
Wow.
my loved one was embalmed, and I had no idea this is you know what that process looked like,
Right.
Right,
So,
right.
and like you said, like, not everybody's going to sit down and want to, read books and websites and
Yeah.
talk with an embalmer and everything. That's because it's not everybody's like, hyperfixation. So I'm able to just condense it down into like, a few pages, make it
Mhm.
extremely easy to digest.
Mhm.
Yes.
Um, so, it's like kind of like, oh, the research has been done for you. And then I
Right.
think utilizing a fictional character,
Yeah.
also makes it a little bit more approachable.
Mhm.
Also, the
You know
zine as a format is really, like, palatable for people.
Yeah.
They're not picking up a
Yeah.
tome. They're not,
Yes,
getting
yes.
a list of sources. It's like
Right.
a
Yeah, in our world
10-minute
where
perusal that would be
yeah,
like, "Wait a minute, I just had a whole construct shift here because I did not know this information."
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and zines, what I think is so cool about, zines as an art form and everything, which I guess if you aren't familiar with them, they're just like small booklets, that can be easily distributed, to
Mhm.
pass along information, poems, art, basically like limitless what you can do with them.
Yes.
But so with it being just this like small, very easy to distribute pamphlet almost, it does make it to where you can spread it around quite
mm.
a bit faster and quite a bit easier.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, there's a huge trading culture in the zine scene, if you will. So it's like, yeah, some people might, give me a few bucks for this zine, but I also might, like something you have, a drawing or
Mhm.
a zine that you have yourself, and I would just much rather trade for that, and then I get
Yeah.
to learn something new
Yeah.
while you're learning something new, which is,
Yeah.
something that I think is so cool about the entire thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
I really like this, and, before I met you, I also thought about doing a little zine because my daughter is involved and she makes zines,
Yeah.
and she actually wrote one about autism and has
Oh,
distributed
cool.
in little libraries
Mm.
because
Yeah.
as for free because she's like, "I want people to understand how it feels to live in this autistic realm," right? Like, and seeing
Mhm.
out but I wonder if there's a way to, like we wanna educate people. We just
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to have people understand what they're choosing, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I can absolutely imagine, you just sending them out into the world and having, young people. I feel like the demographic for zines are mostly young, but not always, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they will
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
informed as they get to the age where they're taking care of elder family members
Right.
and
Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting is, you bring up, like, younger people. I actually have a coworker who, came up to me and was like, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you this. I bumped into this, like, group of teenagers, that had your zine, like, out in the wild." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool." And, apparently, my coworker pointed out, like, "Hey, my coworker made that. I know the person who made that." And apparently this like group of teenagers was really excited about it, was really excited about the information. But what, kind of drew them in was the illustrations of
Mhm.
of the fictional character, that they're like, "Oh, I like this drawing.
Uh-huh.
Um, what does it say? Oh, I like what this says too." And it was like,
Mm.
"Oh, what a neat way to introduce the concept of embalming to a
Yeah,
younger demographic
That's
yeah,
and
so great.
yeah,
everything." And uh, make something that's a very real practice, approachable for them. So
Right.
yes.
I thought that was really, really cool.
I think that is so phenomenally fantastic. Like, I love it. I
Yeah,
just love
yeah.
everything about this.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it sparks, some thoughts in me because, Annalisa and I have been talking about kind of, how do we kinda go to the next step in this podcast because we've been doing this for
yeah,
Mhm.
a couple
2
of years
years.
almost. Yeah. Getting close to
yeah,
2 years, and it's kind of, it's not that it's getting old, but it's the same, we have mostly been talking to people in the work, that do the work of end of life work, which is great, and it's
mhm,
been wonderful. We've learned so much and had such a wonderful time. But the next place might be to start reaching out to more, just the people on the street, and young people
Mhm.
yeah,
especially. And I would love to have a way to like go to a high school or go to a
A
community
zine
center
fest.
or a zine fest. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, or maybe have a zine. Yeah, just
Yeah.
ways to reach people and more like you're talking about, just have this sense of we can share this
Yeah.
information with people and find out, what that how they feel about it and get them on the
Yeah.
podcast to talk about what do you think when you think about this and how's this affected you? And I think that it really, as I'm hearing this, really kind of go, those little lights are going off, like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going on for me too, but I just, death is not an old person topic, right? It
right.
is
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
everybody. It is for people with children who have, terminal illnesses. It's for teenagers who might encounter friends who commit suicide. There are so many places in the world where the conversation around death and dying is 100% like important, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
I really do encourage you to keep like moving this out in the world because everybody needs it. Everybody needs to learn it so they
Yeah.
can make an informed decision too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, and to think yeah, and to be supporting each other because
Mhm.
there's so many people that are going through different things like this, so,
Oh, for sure.
wow.
God.
We're having so much fun. Uh, well,
Yeah.
is there anything when you start thinking about your own death or maybe the people around you, is there anything that frightens you about that or makes you feel like I mean, because you spent so much time, in that world,
Mhm.
how does what like, makes you tense up or maybe, sets up something in your body like, "Ooh." Do you ever grimace yourself, I guess, we're talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting, question actually, because, I've done a lot of work in my young life to make peace with the physical, the spiritual, the all the unknown
Yeah.
aspects of death. I grew up extremely religious. And part of growing up religious was kind of having the answers as far as like what happens after. And when I got a little bit older, I started to deconstruct from that a little bit. I really explored um, spirituality for a while. I spent a little bit of time in a Buddhist monastery. I went through kind of a Wicca phase where I was actively practicing, like a different like Wiccan rituals and things
Mhm.
like that, and was connecting with that. But then at the end of that part of my life, I kind of just was like, I can't really settle on one ideology. I just kind of made peace with like the fact that there's validity to all of this and that I just, and also having being such a devout, I was Christian, I was so devout, making the same connection with a higher power that I had then just was a lot harder to recreate. So I just kind of had to grieve the fact that that was not something I was going to be able to do again.
Mm.
And then, also try and figure out what now, what do I think now, and as far as, like, afterlife and everything goes, I'm pretty much just like, like, I
It's
have
a
my opinions, I
mystery.
have my theories, it's a mystery. I know what brings me peace. I think that, I have my own thing that, I'm like, "Oh, that sounds great to me." It might not sound great to you. But and I'm maybe right, I may be wrong. That's not something I really get hung up on. And then, of
Yeah.
course, with, like, my vessel, the body, I think for me, where I've realized, I actually do have some fear, something that makes me feel anxious and uneasy is, as a trans man, I I fear that in my death, I will not be represented properly.
Mhm.
That's one of my bigger fears, that
Uh,
I've realized because I check in with myself and I ask myself, what is something that like, you know, what is something that makes you nervous? Like,
Yeah.
are you putting up walls? Is that why you sometimes feel like not a lot of fear in regards to the subject? And obviously, I don't want to leave behind my loved ones and stuff like that. But I think for me, it's like, but what if my loved ones, you know,
mhm.
put me in a box? I've requested not to be embalmed. I was like, I would like a green burial. I would like to actually be able to. I mean, I want my carbon footprint to be as small as possible in my passing, considering I know I'm leaving one here in life.
Mhm.
So that yeah, but what if they do all that, but they don't call me my name? What if
Right.
Yeah.
you know, what if they don't represent me as a man?
Right.
And
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
that's something that I do get nervous about, and I've tried to spark conversations with and everything, be like, "Hey, like, I know that we're still trying to, like, make peace with this in life, but if something were to happen to me, I would hope that you have enough
Mhm.
respect for me to put me into the ground as me
Yeah.
in the
Mhm.
clothing that represents me with the name that I use. And
Uh,
I live in Oklahoma,
mhm.
and there's not a lot of rights for people like me here in Oklahoma. It's not really
Yeah.
getting better. So, and I know that I've done a little bit of research on trans people's rights and everything in death, and it's a little complicated and everything. So I do worry about that, and I just hope that while I'm still here and everything, I can continue to advocate for myself and have
Mhm.
conversations with the people that are more than likely going to be in charge of that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
to be continuing to pave the path of acceptance. I feel like there's some similarities here with trans acceptance as well as like
Mhm.
death acceptance, and then we're just packaging
Mhm.
them into one box with my situation.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Is one of my concerns.
Uh,
Oh,
uh, wow.
Chell.
I was just
Mm.
talking to somebody yesterday about who's also trans, and they were saying that or non I guess non-binary person, and they were saying my life has gone from being challenging because of my choices to being illegal, and to being
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
attacked as a terrorist, in
yeah.
this crazy administration we're living through, uh,
Hmm.
and so it just really raises that up in so many ways. I'm so glad you spoke to that because we
Yeah,
Yeah.
really need to be aware of that. We really need to think about it and to think about ways that we can not only advocate for ourselves
Support.
and for yourself, but also advocate for so many people who are dealing with this
yeah,
and how that's such an important piece and so difficult. Well, and so
It's
important for
challenging.
people, yeah, for the
yeah,
people who are working, the doulas
Mhm.
and the funeral directors and people like that, to really understand this and take it in and be willing to advocate and be part of the
Yeah.
advocacy for this. So it's hard.
yeah,
It's really challenging. So thank you again
Yeah, and
for that really important point.
yeah,
Wakil, we had somebody who was on our podcast who talked about being in service to folks whose families would not
Right.
create the space. Do you remember who that was? Because that was her thing. She was like,
Yeah.
"For our
Well,
trans community,
yeah.
we are going to make sure that they get respectfully, you know, interred or
yeah.
whatever." It was
Yeah,
early on, I
Yeah.
remember.
I'll see if I can find it and put it in our podcast notes. But
Yeah, but
yeah, would love to check that out.
yeah.
yep. So, you know, I would say, like, an advanced care directive with a really good, strong person who can support that choice for you, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
um, not a choice, to respect you,
Yeah, just
like,
yeah,
respect,
yeah,
right?
it
just
it exactly,
Your
and,
agency, yeah.
like, ideally, I'll be here a good while, like, like, my husband and everything is my number one supporter and everything, and I, of course, hope he never has to deal with that sort of thing, but
mhm.
I know that, like, with him being, you know, my closest person, that he would do everything he can to
Yeah,
make sure I'm, respected and everything. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's a concern, but
Yeah.
I am fortunate to be creating a network of people
good.
that do treat me with the respect that I feel I and all trans people are deserving of.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's trans people, it's, LGBTQ, it's,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
brown and black,
Yeah.
it's, like, everybody who doesn't fit into, like, the white normative cisgendered middle class kind of box, like,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
everybody gets kind of, like, screwed a little bit
Yeah.
if they don't have somebody who's actually gonna be advocating for, like, the care of dreadlocks
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like, there's so many pieces to the death industry that disregards understanding who is there.
Yeah.
Who is this
Yeah.
Yes.
decedent, right?
That
Yes.
was, another I don't know if it was another one or the same one, or we spoke to a woman who had just become a funeral director. This is quite a few years
Mm.
ago, a black woman, and she said she walked into the room where they were doing the preparation, and the person was about ready to cut off this woman's dreadlocks, right?
Yes,
Because he
yes.
said,
Oh my.
I don't know what to do with this," and so she made it her work and has done
It's
this work ever
That's right.
since
She has a
to
YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
yeah, to say
Okay.
to teach people,
Uh-huh,
in the work in the industry that,
uh-huh.
the cultural differences between people and to respect those cultural differences and, in her case, specifically Black people, but she also from that spread out to
Mhm.
everybody, all the other people who have cultural differences, and you don't just treat them all like,
Yeah.
like they're the dominant paradigm, So
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really, yeah, that was really impressive, and that whole story of her walking in and going, "What are you
Yes.
doing?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
And of course,
yeah.
Um,
she was brand new. She was like this brand new apprentice kind of
that's
person,
right.
and they were
That's
like,
right.
"Who are
Yes.
you to tell us this?"
Exactly. Yeah,
And
the apprenticeship level for sure.
Yeah,
and there was that person who was, like, working specifically with funerals for two-spirited people in
yeah,
Canada.
yeah,
Oh,
That was
yeah.
a different
wow.
person, but yeah, so
Mhm.
we have had some intersection with some folks who are caring for others that are
Yeah.
not the normal or not I don't wanna use that word either,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that are not like what the industry deems as the easy way through, right? Like, this
And
is
kind of that one size fits all,
correct.
the
Yep.
industry, especially like, the West's funeral industry is very much like, basically with like the rise of embalming, it very much became like a white man's industry.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and so whatever kind of fit into that box became the norm, and then as it became more of a true industry, there was even that, like, kind of financial aspect. It became kind of a show, to be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
who has the best casket, the flowers, the potluck," it very much catered to upper middle class white families.
yeah,
Right.
And,
exactly.
so that's kind of how the industry has been formed as a whole. So having people that do not fit into that box,
Yeah.
advocate
Yeah,
for a community that they themselves are a part of, so they understand the struggles is
Mhm.
extremely important.
yeah,
And it's encouraging to hear that y'all have spoken with people that are working alongside communities that don't have the same representation.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
and
rem
yet, it's not that dominant,
Common.
yeah,
Yeah.
common, and unfortunately, it needs to be more, and that's why,
Yeah,
every time we can speak with somebody who's lifting that up, it's just so important, so,
Yep.
and we
I'd also encourage you to possibly put it on one of your, simmering pots of, artistic endeavors, is to write another zine about this,
yeah, absolutely. I think that's
because
actually a really good idea.
I think that, nobody thinks about this.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah,
not on anybody's mind, like, after there's a death, like, of course, it's gonna be whatever, but no, you have to fight for that agency. There's a word that we learned recently about that, like, what it's called to advocate for somebody after they've passed,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
fiduciary, yeah. Was that what
it
you
was a no, it was a different one. It was somebody from New Orleans who told us this
oh,
word,
okay.
Okay.
but I think that would be really it's and, I love that you reach younger people who are hopefully will also the mycelial spread of the youth, coming up and, like, maybe changing,
Yeah,
starting that change at that level too.
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely, and, I'm working on, the broader project, the fictional book Village Vultures. It definitely, like, is geared towards a younger adult audience, and, it kind of is an extension of the embalming zine, and, the main goal I have with it, is to, uh begin conversations about, we have the familiar, funeral industry character where it's like, "Oh, we recognize the funeral home, we recognize the casket, we recognize the embalmed body." But also, like, how is it that we as a society currently interact with death?
mhm,
How do we approach it? And I think that one thing that we can all agree on is that most people tend to kind of shelve the concept until we have to become aware of it.
yeah,
It's like,
Mhm.
out of sight, out of mind.
yeah,
And that's because, we've designed our society to keep it out of sight and to leave it out of mind. We don't want to have, it visible
yeah,
and noticeable and recognizable. So now, it has affected us in that way to where we really do just kind of, oh, now that this is affecting me, I'm having to face it.
yeah,
Right,
Rather
right.
than, realizing that you as a mortal being every single day, every time you walk out the door and get in your car,
Mhm.
I mean, you're always kind of in that
You're
position
in
where,
the mood.
you're
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, not to, not in like a, scary paranoid way, just in a realistic way,
right.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
we are pretty fragile creatures and,
Yeah,
and that's just kind of the reality of it. So, not having those moments of being like, well, how do I feel about that
right,
fragility, about that mortality? We don't really do that because we're not really, unless you're put in a position where you have to,
right.
more than likely you
Well,
probably won't.
it's interesting, this your statement just now just brought up, like, we're consumers, like, we're always like, consumer reports, like, which washing machine is better than the other, and, like, which,
Yeah.
shoes will last longer. Why are we not, like, learning about how we're going to engage in the purchasing of our death thing, right? Like, why
Yeah.
why isn't why like, that's kind of a thing too, like,
Yeah, gonna write
is
that
it
I'm
less
gonna
expensive to go at this one, or,
Yes.
Terramation in Colorado is this price, but if you go to Wyoming, it's, like, double or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah, the
the
shopping
shopping, why
aspect
aren't we shopping around
for
more
your
and making these
funeral
choices?
It should
and
be a consumer
everything,
report, so, like
it's just not in
Yeah,
the hands of the family like it used to be.
yeah,
It goes into the hands of typically somebody else,
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
yeah,
Oh my
So,
yeah.
god, it just occurred to me, I was like, "What?
Yeah, we could
We
have a
should."
consumer reports article or a wire cutter, New York Times
Yeah, the
wire
wire
cutter.
cutter.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We should, like, write
Right to them,
we'll
yeah.
we'll talk about this. Maybe we
Yeah,
could do
yeah,
an
yeah.
Yeah.
April Fool's one where it's like, caskets, embalming process, how much it costs.
Yeah, Green Barrel. I mean, really,
Yeah, yeah.
my
Yeah, I
friend
know that, a couple years back, I went to a death cafe,
mhm,
and, I that's actually where I met some of the first death doulas I had a conversation with. And at the time, there was, the National Funeral Association was trying to make some new decisions as far as, like, requirements for funeral homes nationally. And, one of the things that they were I don't know if the process is a voting process. I know that citizens could go onto the website and basically, like, make a public comment, and so I was telling people at the Death Cafe to make a comment on that site, because, one of the things they were trying to make a decision on was whether or not funeral homes should be required to disclose their pricing on their websites by
right,
law.
right,
Because
yeah,
currently, they do not have to do that.
yeah,
You might not have that pricing disclosed
Right.
really anywhere super
mhm,
visible,
mhm.
and the argument against it was like, "Oh, well, not all funeral homes have websites. Oh, well, this," and it's like, yeah, well, I mean, maybe they should have somewhere
A
online that
pamphlet
they
with
can
the
post that.
prices.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, yeah, like that if we're going to have this industry be an industry, thus, there's going to be a financial transaction involved. Shouldn't families at least know, like, how much they're about to be spending prior to actually making a phone call for said loved one?
Right.
And, some people make their arrangements in advance and, know that, and that's just, that's a gift to, your loved ones and
Yeah,
everything, is if
yeah,
you as the person make your plans and everything for, your family.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I did think that was interesting. Like, oh, it's not a requirement. Like,
yeah,
they
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
have to do it,
We
and
I
they're
need a
do
trying
whole
to
see
'nother
them
Yelp.
decide.
more.
We need
I
a
I
a whole 'nother Yelp category, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. That's exactly
Start leaving
right.
reviews. I have seen reviews, so, like, it's interesting going on, like, Google and looking up said funeral home. It's like, it's so strange that there's Google reviews for
Oh my
this
gosh, I haven't done that. I need to
burial
do
plot.
that. I need to do that. That sounds like a fun activity.
Yeah, I thought it was like, "That's interesting."
Yeah. I have seen a lot more price 'cause, listen, I just helped a friend try to figure out for his wife who just passed away, but
Mhm.
it was interesting too, like, the price, like, variance. I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, shop around, folks.
Right,
Yep,
yeah,
yes, it
definitely.
is like there are differences, it's competitive.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's starting to happen now with the composting and that kind of thing, that
It's
we
so
started with one of
expensive.
those
Oh,
in our
yeah.
area, now there's 2 and one other one coming up, so
Really?
now it's starting to competitive, they're starting to lower the prices, right? So
Oh,
that's
wow.
happening, and my friend I was gonna say my friend Bodie, who really helped us kinda start this thing, and we're gonna actually get to interview him again soon. He was one of our very first people.
Oh, yeah.
He has a nonprofit green funeral home in Hawaii,
Oh, wow,
maybe the
that's
only
cool.
one, and so he always likes to say, "Well, yeah, we got all these great new alternatives, but they're still expensive. He said, just put the body in the ground. You want the least expensive option? Put the body in the dirt.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
know?
Wrap it in a blanket,
Yeah,
make a
yeah,
hole,
yeah.
and feed it
yeah,
to our mama again.
Yeah. So anyway, that
yeah.
I love that we've got this great conversation. It goes on, which is fine,
Alright,
which is good.
alright, what's our next question?
Uh,
How do you okay, so, Chell, how do you take care
Mhm.
of yourself when things feel a little too heavy around the death piece, which you may or may not be thinking about sometimes, but how do you, like, move that energy out of yourself?
Oh, wow. Um, to be completely, real, I am still absolutely working on how to take time for, myself to decompress and rest. I'm kind of like a shark, and I just kinda have to keep moving. Um, Sleeping occurs, but it's very hard for me to sit still and to not be working on things, and I mean, to say I don't get overwhelmed would be dishonest. I do, I overwhelm myself even though it's like I enjoy the projects I'm working on. So if I'm on my best behavior, I will actually take a moment to step away and do something that's a little bit, to take a nice walk, to, do something active. I try to make time for, to take care of the vessel I'm in and to make
Mhm.
sure we are stretching and to make sure we are, you know, every now and then we're out of breath. Maybe we're sweating a little bit, like I tattoo, I write, I draw. There's a lot of sitting down that occurs. The brain is being exercised all the time. So I try to, give the body a chance. That's actually very decompressing for me. And I
Mhm.
actually tend to feel quite a bit, you know, better, and the world feels like it starts to move at a slower pace whenever
Yeah,
I take the time to actually
yeah.
Mhm.
uh, take care of the body I have while I have it.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I don't think I don't oops, I'm getting echo. Ana Luisa doesn't know anything about that, right? I was just laughing with her when she was cracking up. Just,
Yeah, no, it's I
finding a
understand.
finding a moment to take a rest.
I do, but you know what? I'm gonna encourage both of us to rest this brain because I know we've got, like,
Yes.
hungry brains thinking a lot. The body definitely needs to be stretched, but our hearts also need to be tended to, like,
Yeah,
Yes.
because I feel like that's the one that is kind of the one I need to take most care of these
yep,
days.
yep.
Yeah,
You should
I would
have that
agree
on
with
your
that.
calendar just like everything else, you
I
know?
should. I love you.
Yeah,
Now's
if
your
it's
time.
not in the calendar, it doesn't exist is what I tell people. I'm like, if I
Ah,
forget to put it there, I
Yeah,
might not show up. So
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
have to I pencil in like my social stuff, all of it. It's like talk to friend on phone, and it's
Yeah.
like in my
I
calendar,
know, it
just to
has
make
to be
sure I
there.
actually maintain the social life. But
Mhm.
I agree, definitely taking time for the heart and everything is a very, very important thing. I try to continue to go to therapy at least once a month to do all that. But I definitely could probably do more to, check in with myself in that way too.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
process.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
No
It is.
shoulds. We're
Yeah,
doing the
we don't do shit.
we don't do shoulds. We just show up and we're doing the best we can today.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. That's basic. That is basically my motto in life: is you're trying your best. You're doing all
Right,
right.
Yeah.
doing this
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
yeah. Well, we always want to leave time for you to just tell us if there's anything we forgot or anything that you'd like to share that we didn't ask you about. So, we're anything we missed or anything, and when you were talking about your work, you listed several things and then talked mostly about the zine, right? And I love
Yeah.
that the kind of the zine itself is kind of a symbol of our world that we have to go fast, right? We can't
Yes.
we can't read a whole book. We've got to,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
that's actually why it fits so nicely into our world. So, but anything else
Yeah.
that you would like to share with us before we finish up?
I mean, I guess like, like we mentioned at the beginning, I tattoo professionally. That's what I spend the majority of my time doing, and that's a people's industry. I spend a lot of time with people.
Yeah,
And I thought it would be, important to mention that, one of the aspects of my job that I think that a lot of people are probably pretty familiar with, because a lot of people feel they need a reason to get a tattoo. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. And a very common reason is memorialization.
Mm,
And
Mhm.
so that's actually been a place where I feel like I was able to really begin to get more exposure to grief and healing, was through my occupation. People
mm,
coming in, and it could be tattoos that are handwriting from a card or letter, or maybe it's something that is a visual representation of what that person enjoyed, a hobby, and getting to engage in that as an illustrator, as a tattoo artist, and then as the person that is sitting there, talking to the person, putting the tattoo on the body. And getting a tattoo is, I always, I'm like, every tattoo is a brave thing to do. Every
mhm,
tattoo, there's some inherent risk behind it.
mhm.
But and that's, nothing in life is really worth doing, that it is easy. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that, taking risks and everything. But one thing that I think about, tattoos that are used for memorialization is, there's something very different about that, because most people will get them, and it doesn't feel like a risk. It feels like a necessary part of their
Mm.
healing process.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And getting to see them,
Mm.
oftentimes emote,
Mhm,
and talk about the person. I get to learn a lot about the person that I am doing the tattoo for. That has definitely inspired me, in my work and everything. And also being like, I could definitely see myself at one point in my life, um, tattooing. I don't know if it's forever, it does a number on your body. I can definitely see myself at one point wanting to fully engage with that side of things. I've talked
Mhm.
with you a little bit about death
Yeah.
dueling and
Yeah.
things like that, and getting to be present for people in that way. And I think that tattooing's been a good introduction for me, um, to kind of what maybe that would be like,
Yeah,
having those
yeah.
conversations more openly and frequently.
That's so cool. That's so great.
Rachel,
Yeah.
I just wanna bless you
Yeah, yeah.
because I feel like you could be the most amazing interfaith chaplain,
Mm.
tattoo
Oh.
artist.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I
Yeah.
love the
full
combination.
stop.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's how Joaquil and I met. We're interfaith chaplains.
Yeah. Yeah.
We went
Yeah.
to seminary because we couldn't fit into any one box. We're just like you,
Yeah.
all these different faith
Yeah.
traditions were like, "Oh, go it's just one big one, whatever,"
Yeah, yeah.
so and then
Yeah.
but, I think that once you recognize that you're serving, folks in their grief
Mhm.
or, their joy or whatever emotion is huge and acute, and you have the skills to do it safely for yourself and safely for
Mhm.
them, bear witness to it. I mean,
Wow.
you're on your
It's
way.
such a service, yeah. Yeah, you're there. I mean, I think many people are
You
there and
are
don't even
there.
know it,
Yes,
right?
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. So glad
Yeah.
that you recognize that about it yourself, and so, thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has turned I mean, I thought this was gonna be one of those awesome ones, and it was.
It's like
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope we didn't derail too much.
Oh, that's okay.
I tend to kind of ping pong around with my dialogue,
No, that
so
was
no,
I
no,
perfect.
appreciate
it
you
That was
guys
was
perfect.
all
facilitating that.
everything was so well spoken, but did you bring a poem to read today?
I did not, unfortunately.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't
okay.
see one.
I had a hard time narrowing down what I would do, so I apologize that I
No
didn't,
worries.
come equipped with something like that. I was like, "There's so many things," and then I
Yeah.
just got, like, decision fatigue.
I know. Well,
It's
listen,
like,
yesterday I read Lemony Snicket, so
Yeah, yeah,
that's, we have
yeah.
the
I
whole
love
gamut.
that, yes.
Well,
Yeah, so
and,
I apologize about
we've spent more time than usual, so we don't have to every time end with something, so and I think
Yes.
this whole conversation has been a poem really in many
It
ways, so
is.
yeah.
You are a poem.
Oh,
Mm.
thank you. Oh, that's very
Mhm.
sweet of you.
So really, so totally appreciate your work and all that you do. And I was
Yes.
thinking
Yes.
about my daughters both got when you were saying that my daughters both got tattoos from a story that I've told them their whole lives.
Oh,
It's Star Dancing Girls. So
yeah.
they that's it's a similar idea. They're
Yeah.
memorializing their lives and their connection to each other, and I just love that. That was the very first tattoos they got. So now
That's
I'm thinking
so
Oh,
about
sweet.
what maybe I do
love
need a
that.
tattoo.
Maybe we should. We should go to
Yes.
Oklahoma or
Yeah.
Rachel, anytime you're in Denver, please,
Yeah,
you
or
have
Yes.
a home
Seattle.
here with me.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I, definitely, plan on trying to make it back out there. I mean, maybe even next year for the Z Fest again. So
Good.
Cool.
I'm sure
Okay.
I'll be in the area very soon, and I just love it. Oklahoma's very flat. It's nice to see. The opposite of that. See some mountains and
Yep.
everything. It's very
Yeah,
refreshing.
yeah. Well, you gotta come to the Northwest sometime too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
so lovely. Thank you
Alright.
so much for
We'll
for
say
stepping
goodbye.
into our space and
Yeah,
joining us. I
sharing.
appreciate you.
Yeah, very
Yes,
much.
thank you so much for having me and, for reaching out and, giving me this opportunity. It's been really, really cool, getting to talk with, you a little bit more and then getting to meet you, and, I mean, the work y'all do is incredible. I mean, the podcast and then the work you do outside of it. I mean, yeah, it's nice to connect more with people, that have, a similar passion.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, thanks again. We'll see you soon, I hope.
Yes,
Thanks for all your work.
absolutely.
Take care.
Yes, thank you so much. Take
Adios.
care. Bye.
Heard his dog there last at the end.
Yeah. I want your attention. Oh, Wakil.
Good
Uh,
call on Colin finding this person. Wow, what a great
yeah.
find. This is, and such a unique perspective on things. We get to do this so often, and every single time we've blown away. But again, this is like a whole nother uh, very important, unique perspective that we got to spend time with. And wow, could have kept going.
We coulda kept going. I mean, this is definitely this is a person who's doing interesting, uh, service work and honoring death and talking about it and doing the zine and sharing it, like, this person is a change maker,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Like, it is very much, I don't know. I really feel like young people who are doing this are my gurus, right?
yeah,
Like,
right.
they're
Yeah,
doing it right from the start,
yeah.
and I'm like, "It took me, all this time to get here." So, oh, what a delight. What a
Yeah,
delightful
yeah, such
human.
a great thing, and doing it in Oklahoma, wow, there's a certain level of courage there, you know? Um,
I
and
know.
also that's such an important thing too, to be in a place that's not necessarily supportive of the work he's doing or the person he is even,
Mhm.
and to be there and be courageous and strong enough to really lift this up and be an advocate for himself and
Mhm.
everybody else, so
Mhm.
yeah, we need more and more of those, and so inspiring to have
I
somebody
know.
share this, and I've got all sorts of things I wanna do now, right?
I know, me too. I was like and I really think this is a young person I'd like to keep an eye on and support. Like, as an
Yeah,
elder, be like, "How can I support you to move, in any of these directions that you're
yeah.
dabbling in?" Because, I don't know, it just makes sense. Like, I could see him becoming an interfaith chaplain and being a tattoo artist.
Yeah, that would be so cool. I mean, yeah, I think you have to be elder in training, hon, you're a little too young still.
I'm Oh, come on.
Kidding. I
I
know, you
I
totally you take that role very beautifully.
Thank you.
Anyway,
And,
so
yeah, and also as an aside, I just, unpacked your book yesterday, your Stargazing Girls, and it's
oh,
right here on my loved one's,
Star
bookcase here.
dancing, yeah, yeah, so
Yes,
cool, yeah. Alright, well, yeah, there's a line from there in there, I think it was I forget which line they put on their little right on their hip, you know? So cool.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright,
Well,
much love to
blessings.
you, appreciate you.
Adios.
We'll see you I think we're on again next week, so
Yeah.
adios.
Well, I'm gonna sit here for a second anyways.
Alright, take care.
Dying grief and lost conversations about the end of life.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Charles Heaston, the composer of the original music you are listening to now.
And of course, thanks to you, our audience, and all of our amazing guests. Please come back next week for another great episode. Share this with your friends, family, and community. We hope you will subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. Each guest's additional information will be found in the podcast notes. And of course, if you have a good end-of-life story to share, please reach out. We are always eager to hear from you.